Hi guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel Pratham Diaries. Today's video is about roles of a business intelligence developer. I'd spoken on the last video on the roles of a business analyst, that I'll do a video on roles of a business intelligence developer. So if you are new to this field, if you want to pursue your career as a business intelligence developer, I'll explain what is the role of a BI developer, what is that you need to do as a business intelligence developer. I have been working as a BI developer for multiple years now, playing a role of architect, consultant. Myself, I do reports. So, what are the essentials that are required? I have around 16 years of experience into this industry, working across various business intelligence tools from Click, Tableau, Power BI, Spotfire, Cognos. So, just to name a few, Looker is a new one as well, and my forte is Microsoft Power BI. But for all these tools, what you really need to know is about what are the roles of a business intelligence developer, what he needs to do in to ensure the solution is successful. As a developer, I feel that it is just not about delivering reports or creating dashboards. It is much more about whether, as a developer, the solution that you are creating, how much beneficial it is to the organization. So that's a very key point that you need to keep in your mind when you start working into this role. The other thing that I want to do is, as a BI developer, or is as any person, when you spend so much hours in creating something that you feel is beneficial, but if it is the end user consumption is not good, so it basically is a waste of time. Because if you are producing something, for example, if you're making food which is good, you feel that it's good, but no one eats it, then what is the use? Similarly, in you might have seen there are a lot of restaurants, but only a picky few restaurants work because their food is called the demand, because they're serving the needs, that they're exactly targeting the problems. So as a BI developer also, you need to kind of target the problem of the end user, and then you need to work on things to achieve that solution. So further, let's kind of deep dive into the role. I'll explain you what are the things that are required, and we can then get started. All right. And then please do, if you like this content, please to hit the subscribe button, like the video, share it with your fellow BI developers, and I feel that would be helpful. So it's going to be a really long video, 15 minutes I say, not more than that. But there are 10 to 12 points which I would like to discuss today. So let's get started. So the very first thing as a business intelligence developer that you need to work is business analysis. So when I spoke about business analysis, you need to kind of work with the business analysts and the end users and try to understand what their needs are. So when I speak about the needs, there could be existing report that somebody has developed and they want to transition that report into a business intelligence tool wherein the reports are automated. Now you need to understand certain problem statements, what the end user wants. So it could be he wants better visualizations. One, he would want better insights because the solution should give you better insights about addressing a particular problem. And third would be the ease of navigation and a story. So you need to really understand what the business user needs are, and then try to translate that into a solution which is a business intelligence solution that will address or cater to their needs and help them solve the problem that they're addressing to. Like for example, if I'm looking at a sales report, okay, I really want to understand what is driving my sales. Month, MTD, QTD, these are all parameters, KPIs that give you what is the performance. But I really want to understand which product is driving my sale. Is it that 20% of my products that I have cater to 80% of the revenue I generate? So these are the solutions that I need to address from a business intelligence solution. This is just an example. There are various other examples that you can look forward into the industry. You can search on Google. You'll have a lot of insights around various domains. So just I gave an example of sales, which is pretty common that everybody does. So the first important thing, as I said, business analysis. As a BI developer, you need to be a part of the business analysis area. You need to understand your customers very well, and then only you will be able to create a solution, right? So then, so the next topic is data integration. So data integration, which is followed by your ETL. So data integration is, you as a business intelligence developer need to understand your data sources. So what kind of data exists in the system? You need to have that analysis done initially to understand what are the data sources I can tap into, be it Excel, be it database. It can also be APIs. These days, everybody works on APIs. So these are the data sources that you can tap into, and you really need to understand how you can integrate these data sources to be one single source of truth. So this integration helps you to kind of address or tap into the exact area where the information is coming from. So you really need to work on the data integration aspect of it. That will help you that's the first step of your business intelligence solution, which is followed by your ETL, which is extract, transform, and load. So ETL or ELT, which is also fine, but in terms of ETL, it is much more about extracting the data, transforming the data. When I say transforming the data, it would be cleaning your data and making it into multiple layers. So the final layer would be, which would be good data, which is error free, errorless. So when you do transformation, it starts from the very basic. If you're having names and the names within your data are mixed in uppercase and lowercase, you can transform it and make it standard. If you're using date and time, you need to split your date and time so that you have date separate, time separate. You need to trim your column, cleanse your columns, take care of the null or blank values. So this is all a part of transformation that you need to do. So once you transform the data, then load the data. Always ensure that don't directly load the data and then go a step back and then do the transformation. You really first need to transform your data and then load the data for further to create visuals. So these are the two important steps: data integration and ETL, that you need to work upon. The next topic is data modeling. You really need to understand your data model, because that is the base of your entire solution. Integration, where you bring in data, transform it, but data model. Data modeling, you need to understand how different tables are mapped to each other and what kind of relationship needs to be assigned and what is the cardinality. So when I speak about cardinality, it will be one to many, many to one. Yeah. And you need to have a cross filter, which is single or both. When I say single, from table A, you can pick up a column which goes into table B, which filters data from table B. In both, you can use table B to also filter columns from table A. So, the cardinalities are very important, and cross filter directions are also very important. So that is a key. On data modeling, you really need to understand, first always make a list. You create a document which states, I have 10 tables. Within tables, I have a primary key which should be unique. That is the very important base. It should not be duplicate, so that it impacts your data modeling. So it should be unique. You should see if you have a foreign key. You need to also understand if your tables are indexed, which will further help you later as a part of your query optimization, which I'll talk about later. But as a part of your data modeling, you really need to understand what kind of schema you want to bring the data in. So people say star schema is the best because you have one measure, one fact table, and you have dimensions circling around it, so which gives like a star. Okay, so that is how basically, if you look at our solar system, fact table is your sun, dimension are your planets. So that is simple. So keep that in mind. If you want to do star schema, snowflake schema is where you have two fact tables and then there are multiple tables around it. So when you do snowflake, it is really tricky. So you need to introduce a intermediate table in between, which will then connect to those fact tables and then work the way out. So it is very crucial that once your data model is done, you need to ensure that you also need to provision a future scope. You need to think from that perspective that if a new information in form of table or any data source comes into play, how will that also fit my solution? In case that would be only in case if you have a discussion with the end user and he's saying, for now let's do part A and we include the part B later. So that is where you need to kind of think through. But if you have the requirement scoped in, finalized, then you need to really fix your data model and get the data model signed off and approved by your data engineer, technical architects, that this is how the data flow is going to happen, which would then later on turn onto your reports, which brings to my next part of designing reports and dashboards. So generally it's about reports. So when you are designing a report, the most important thing that you need to take your mind is, first be creative. First take a pen, paper, have a design. What do you feel that my KPIs are as a part of the initial analysis you have done? Where should I kind of place those KPIs? You can have a title on the top. Below that you can have KPIs. On the left hand side you can have a slicer pen, or you can either do it left, either way. So you can have the KPIs on the left and you can have your slicers on the top. Again, it really depends upon how creative you are, and also in terms of the user experience and the user interface, how easy it is for the user. If you have a report that is already done by a user, it could be a thing that the users are used to see that report over and over again. But when you do a design, you also need to take that into consideration. How beneficial? If I have a striking KPI, which, for example, I need to understand my sales, and with the sales, that is a standard KPI, that's my total sale. But I also want to understand what is my performance of the current month. So I should then have a current month sale besides it. So I will then, when I look at the report, I'll say, okay, total sales and this is my current month sales. And then with that you can basically create a trend below it to just see how my sales are going on, maybe a cumulative visual. And then within cumulative you can have a trend. So it shows how, if my trend's going up and down, but it's going up this way. So that is how you need to think about when you create reports. The other important point when you do visualizations is generally you have to be very, very, very thoughtful of reducing the clicks on the report. You will have interactions, cross highlighting, cross filtering, these options are there, but there should be less clicks. A user, when he looks at the report, with that first instance only, he should be able to address at least 40% of his problems. So that's very important. Then the next part, where we think about we introduce certain elements, analytical elements, that you don't need to do that in the initial pages. You can keep it at the end, because nobody wants to first look at the report and see what the predictions are. Predictions are always going to be later. First is my performance. So, and this will also help when you send the report into a PDF format, when you export the report basically. So the first page for the high level management will always talk about the performance, where I am standing at present. So that is, your nature should be, first you talk about the overall performance, and then you go into the analysis, demand analysis, regional analysis, category analysis, product analysis. For example, you can do it that way. So that's how you need to look at the reports, so which is very crucial. Yeah. One of the other things that you need to look at when you load the data and when you're doing the reports, when you're creating measures, columns, you need to really thoroughly test it. So the reason I'm saying about testing of the visuals or the data that you feel, which is the next point that I want to speak about, is optimization. You really need to have your reports optimized. The report should load faster. The visual interactions should be pretty quick, because that is where the user experience is going to be. Because if you create a measure, for example, if I tell you that, okay, I have 10 conditions in a calculation that I need to do, then if I'm doing it at the front end and I'm using that conditional column into my visual, so every time I interact, that calculations happens on the runtime, which definitely is going to impact the performance of my visual. So I would prefer having that at the backend or in the database, in the data source. So in that way, it comes at a single column. So you really need to think about one of these areas when you look at the optimization. Second piece of optimization that I want to tell you is, where you really need to understand your tool very well, because when you are transforming the data, you need to understand what queries are fired at the source and transformed and brought back into the tool. So that you need to really understand which step takes time and then address that particular step towards optimizing it. So one of the good examples is grouping. So when in Power BI, if I say, when I'm grouping a particular data, so grouping a particular table, what it does is it fire a query, a group query back to the SQL database. In the if I'm taking example of SQL database as a source, it will fire a query back and bring the group data. So you really need to understand which steps are really important, which are the key important steps. Forget about uh, promoting headers, changing data types, that are very standard. But where you are doing an actual transformation, adding custom columns, so creating additional columns, you need to really understand how those conditions are applied and how much load that takes on the source, and that determines the load process of your data. If you are able to thoroughly manage your queries in a more optimized manner, your data load is going to be faster, because you, for a user, front report is fine, but for a developer it is very essential that your queries are more optimized and the load of data is faster. So when you're doing direct queries, you need to ensure that you don't do multiple joins, you can do subqueries. Subqueries are very very important for this. So think about it, you need to think around how these solutions have to be catered in terms of query optimization. The next point I want to talk to you about is data quality and governance. When you do transformations, you need to highlight the data quality issues, be it errors in data, be it your null values, blank values, the fields that are binary. You need to ensure that the fields are binary instead of text. So binary performance is very fast, as one zeros are very fast as compared to yes nos, like that. So you need to kind of create those flags and use those into your transformations as a part of data quality. So this is very important, because this in turn helps your data load faster. So which is a very key point. Second terms in data governance, you really need to understand your source and govern your source to ensure that there is no junk flowing in. So you need to, as a developer, you need to put in certain steps that, okay, I have x source, for example database. The database needs to be updated on a frequent basis. It should not be that you got a data source and it never updates, then your reports are gone for a toss. So you need to ensure that you need to govern your data, how frequently data is changing, how frequently the data is updated or modified in columns, whether there is correct information going on. Sometimes what happens is, within numeric you have text flowing in, especially in terms of dates. Some people write it a date format, some people will just write it as a text, so that will give you an error in your data. So that is very important. Then the next thing I want to say is, when you have description, when you're working on customer services or where the customer feeds the information, the length of the characters, it should not be too lengthy, because that is another piece where you might have to use analytical features to group your data and bring them into key phrases to do further categorization. So as a part of data quality governance, these points are very essential. You need to think around how your data has to be. Okay, so please look into that. That will be a key game changer in your solution. So guys, that concludes the first part of the video. I'll do a second part, which has the next steps. So please continue to watch the video. I'll drop in the second part soon. So thank you so much for connecting. I really appreciate taking out the time. If you have any questions, comments, please drop them into the comment box. Would really appreciate. Thank you, and you have a lovely week.